Martin Jarvis, and once again, I want to welcome you to Listen. Recently, I was having a conversation with a couple of black men. It's very good for us to come together and discuss. We were discussing our community. We were discussing the way things were. I mean, I think I was the oldest, 64. There's a brother there, 55 years old, another brother, I think he was about the same age, from Dayton. And we're having a very interesting conversation now. I'm not from Dayton. I was born in Los Angeles into a military family, lived there for a while, went to Europe 5 years, went from there to Kansas when my father was in Vietnam, went to Maine, and after Maine, my father was stationed at Wright-Patterson in Ohio. And so where I went to school. Graduated high school at 17, went to boot camp myself, traveled around the world, and settled back down in Ohio. Here I am. Now that was in 1979. That was a long time ago, so I've been here for a minute, okay? I've worked jobs, after the military, worked for the railroad, worked for NCR Corporation for 13 years, and worked for the post office for 29 years. So, and so I've been here. I was an atheist for many years. I became, then I wasn't. I was in the church as a deacon and elder, and 20 plus years as a staff pastor in a local church. Spent 17 years speaking to youth at juvenile detention, trying to encourage and motivate them outside of the reality of what they believed was their reality, what actually was their reality. And I've been really, as a young person, really well versed in the civil rights movement, in the Black Power movement. Having been a teenager in junior high school, and the military in the 70s. On the heels of the civil rights and Black Power movement, it was a great place to be for a black man, a black young man in America. There was a pride, and there was a power, there was a solidarity among black people that we just don't see today. I was sharing with the brothers, it was a great conversation among black men. We do need to do that. Two guys I'd never met before. We just started a conversation, and it was excellent. But we were talking about the N-word, nigga. But nigga isn't a problem, whereas when we don't have the A at the end, that's when it becomes a problem. But the reality is, that it seems as black people today, from the perspective of an older black man, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see this older black man. I'm going to be 65 this year in 2023. It just doesn't seem like it, but I'm an older black man. And from what I've seen in life, from the time I was a teenager and a young man up until today, is that black people have become pretty weak. I think society as a whole has become weak, but this program right now is focusing on our people. This whole crying about people saying the N-word and what are they saying about us and all this stuff. What else is new? I mean, come on now. They've been using that word for a long time. See, but in my time, there were consequences to using that word. See, I came up in Ohio, in a high school where there were like 150 blacks. We were all pretty much military kids, and the rest, kind of country white folks, from, this, what we got here in Ohio, right? But we didn't have issues with the N-word, because folks didn't want to get beat down. As well, I had a Mexican friend, a real good friend. We used to practice karate together. Before I went in the military, we went to California together. Good friend of mine, and somebody called him a wetback, which is like the N-word, to Mexicans, having to do, with crossing, to river to the United States, and many of them lost their lives. So it's not, it's a derogatory term for Mexicans. And this is no exaggeration. The next time I saw that white guy, his eyes were actually, literally, both of them swollen shut. He was beat down so bad. So back in my day, there was no problem with anybody using the words they chose to use, because we could use our words. Look, back in my day, okay, honky, really, it was a bad word. It's kind of silly now, and it even sounds funny. People like saying it, Just like black people don't mind using the N-word amongst themselves, white folks don't mind using the H-word nowadays because to them it's funny, but back in those days it wasn't funny. And I remember there was a movie, and I think I was still in high school, it was about 74 or something like that. There was a movie called The Black Six, okay? And it was about these black, motorcycle guys, and they were like football stars of today. There was like Willie Lanier, Mean Joe Green, Mercury Morris, A couple other brothers, I can't remember who they were. But anyway, they were like somewhere in the U.S., had become men, right? And they were from like Louisiana or somewhere down south. And one of their family members or friends, you know, they were like beat up and killed, you know, by the Klan, by those folks down here, right? So this was the essence of the movie. So they all came back, they all showed up, and they handled, you know, the Aryans, the white racists in that community. And at the end of the show, it said this is an actual movie that was actually shown to the public called The Black Six. It said, "Honky beware, hassle a brother and you'll lose your life!" Exclamation point, right? Yeah, now imagine that. That wouldn't go over well today. But see, it was easy to produce a movie like that and put that out because everybody could say what they wanted to say. There was no political correctness. So you have these people today, certain political parties, certain people, you know, protesting against political correctness. That is until it's used against them and they start crying. Same with this whole gun issue. You know, this whole thing, it's my constitutional right to bear arms and all this stuff, you know, pry it from my cold dead fingers and all that stuff, right? You know who came up with these gun laws, these gun restrictive laws? Governor Ronald Reagan. That's where a lot of them started in California. Because the Panthers, the Black Panthers for self-defense, in order to protect the citizens of Oakland, California, who are being abused by the police, they took advantage of the laws and began carrying shotguns and rifles, which were legal, and would begin challenging the police when they would stop motorists, okay? So now the citizens, you know, the white citizens of those communities begin to fear the blacks that were carrying these weapons, okay? So this is where many of the gun laws, you know, begin to be proposed. They were because black people were arming themselves, because black people were recognizing, understanding, and using the law to benefit themselves. See, this is where we're screwing up. This is one of the ways we're screwing up today. We're allowing the law to mess us up because too often, we're breaking the law. We're out there with our pants down, in effect, you know, just not being ready, not being prepared, and rather than utilizing the law for our benefit, we are allowing the law to be utilized to oppress and suppress us. So today, the situation that we have in our nation today, yeah, our situation may have been created, you know, from an historical perspective by white people, but what's kept us here is ourselves, our own antics, our own inability to see the way out of this mess that we're in. And you know, maybe there are a number of ways, as we were discussing these brothers. You know, one of them suggested that it was the crack epidemic, that was the crack that was introduced into the black community. Another suggested that it was the politicians benefiting themselves and you know, just lining their pockets and, oh well, you know, the heck with the people. Another were Bill Clinton, jobs overseas. Some of the things were unverified, but this was a good conversation among black men, that as jobs begin to leave, you know, the city began to suffer, and the condition of the people would be the consequences of that suffering. But this is like all over the nation. And so what I'm suggesting today is that if we want to be well, as black people, we just have to stop complaining. We just have to stop being so weak. You know, stop being the individual to be pitied and become the individual to be feared. And I don't mean the individual to be feared from a violence perspective, but I mean Obama was an individual to be feared. You know, and I was speaking to some other black men here, speaking as far as who Obama was and how he was set up to be in that position by white people. I don't care what all that was. What I'm suggesting is that as black people, we need to see situations and take advantage of those situations and exploit them. Okay, so this guy was saying, you know, that the Obamas knew the Bushes, you know, when he was a kid, and that he was wealthy, and that his stepfather was like the 11th richest man in the world. You know, I don't know about all that stuff, and if it's true, it's fine. But what's that got to do with anything? For me, I didn't know who Obama was. I didn't know how he was raised. You know, we know the pictures we see and all that stuff, but all I saw when he became president was this young brother, a black man, that had a Harvard education, that was a Harvard-educated attorney, that was a Harvard law professor, that had been a senator from Chicago, and that was now president of the United States, a young black man. And I was a man with a high school diploma. When I was 50 years old is when Obama became president. On my 50th birthday, November 11th, Veterans Day, is when it was announced that Obama had won that first election. What a birthday present, huh? And I was determined at that point that I was going to get a college degree, just an associate degree. This black man inspired me, so I don't care if he knew the Bushes. I don't care how rich his stepdaddy was. I don't care what positive environment or best schools he may have been raised in. That wasn't the issue. I saw a situation that inspired me as a black man. See, we have to stop looking for excuses for our failure. And even positive influence in our lives begin detracting from that individual. I don't care about all that. What can I get from this situation? How can I be improved? So I decided to go to school. That was November when we got the news on my birthday, November 11th, man. January, I was at Sinclair, going to Sinclair Community College. 10 years later, I had earned an MBA, simply because I was inspired by this black man. We have to see this. Man, I'm going to be 65 years old this year. I don't feel it, okay? And every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, really? I do try to keep my everything trimmed down so all that white hair doesn't start coming out, you know, kind of convincing me, yeah, you are 65, all right. Yeah. No, man. So what do I do now? Man, I exercise every single day of the week. And not strenuous, but I exercise. I have a cardio and I have some other stuff I do. I eat right pretty much 95% of the time. I try to be educated, to learn stuff, always being learning stuff. 63 years old, you know, I got my MBA when I was 60. A certified scuba diver when I was 63. Right now I'm learning to speak Spanish to be fluent in 8 months. I started 4 months ago. By June, I expect to be fluent. And you know, how fluent will I be? I don't know. I'm working on this on my own. But the point is, I'm challenging myself, always studying, trying to study the quantum physics, trying to study, you know, genetics, trying anything, you know, just to study, to expand my mind, okay?
I was sitting here thinking about how far out that horizon is and how there's no visible reality of land. And I was considering the early explorers who from distant lands would jump in a wooden boat with the hope and belief that there was something beyond. And it would spend months and months at sea and finally landing, discovering people who weren't really lost, but discovering what they had all along believed was possible. And so I was considering the situations of our lives today, how sometimes we have hopes and dreams, aspirations, wishes, desires, and all that we just figure just can't become a reality because the obstacles seem too large. The barriers seem so wide. But all it takes is a footstep. That's the philosophy that I live within life, is that just take the next footstep and then don't worry about the end and how you're going to get there and what perils you might find along the way. We can create and concoct a lot of these things in our imagination, and it'll keep us from even beginning or attempting those things which are deep desires in our hearts. But I'm suggesting, and a consideration that I want to leave you today, is to just simply trust the journey. Just believe the way in which you want to go is the way you're supposed to go. And if you run into a barrier or an obstacle, that's just part of the experience along this path, the journey of your life. The key is not to give up. Just don't give up. And you'll get there. Now, the there that you may eventually attain may not look much like what you intended. But I guarantee you, if you hang in there and the wisdom and insight that you garner along the way, you're no longer the same person that had that desire when you started. And that which you'll attain for yourself will be the things that have evolved even in your knowledge, your insight, your understanding. And you'll be glad that you went that direction. Trust the journey. Trust the journey.
One of the things that this program does is an expansion. It challenges me. I've been on this program here and my other program, my spiritual program, for we're going into our 18th year. Every week. This is challenging. Can't come here with nothing to say. So this challenges me as well. speaking to those kids at juvenile detention challenged me, man. Because even as a minister, you know, you could go into a church, and I speak there at churches as well. People will amen you all day long. But you speak between 40 and 50 young people wearing orange jumpsuits in an auditorium, man, you better bring something that they can believe, because they're certainly not going to be amening you, okay? So that challenged me as well every week to dig and to seek and to find and to study and to try to understand and comprehend so I could break it down to these young people, okay? So I have always challenged myself, always challenge yourself. You want to know how to stay young? Keep challenging yourself. Don't, you have a purpose. See, when you run out of purpose, what's my goal? Just going to get a buzz, get off work, go get drunk, go get high. Come on now. That's no purpose. And that's certainly not helping our community. What's the example to the young people? Man, you know, a lot of times as older folks, we can sit around and rag on these younger generations. These younger generations, you know, when I say young, I mean like maybe 40 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old. That's younger for me. I mean, the reality is they've been looking at us. They were all born in this world as innocent babies. What did they see? What was the environment? Who were their heroes? Who were they imitating? And that imitation, how they perfected it, even ratchet up to the next level. You know what I'm saying? It's us. So we have a responsibility for their failure, man. We're the ones who dropped the baton. We've been focused so much on ourselves, on our money, you know, on our jobs, on the way we look, on our coolness, on the clubs, on the women, all the stuff that we've been focused on. And we not recognizing that they're watching us and they're taking their cues from us. Man, I had a buddy that I used to work with. He was so mad. He was so mad because his son started smoking weed. And he had told him all his life, don't smoke weed, don't smoke weed, don't smoke weed. But my friend was having a beer every day when he was getting off of work. So what was it? What was the message sent to his kids? That the buzz is okay. The kid just chose his own kind of buzz. Be careful. They're watching you. Yeah, we are not absolved of the culpability to the situation that we are criticizing of these people that are younger than us. You know, we are directly related to that. And what have you done for them lately? What did we do? What did we create? I'm just suggesting that we have a responsibility here. Yeah, so we do need to pick up that baton. Man, when you look at our history, where we've come from. I mean, we love to post about Black Wall Street. We love the Oklahoma City massacre and all the massacres, all the black folks that have done well and have their stuff stolen, taken from them and all that stuff, murdered. But we love to talk about them, but what are we doing? Just talking about the way things were isn't going to cut it. You know, you see it in church all the time. You see it everywhere all the time. Politicians, old folks, you know, always talking about the way things were. Well, how come you're not walking? How come it's not that way now? Okay, so there comes a time when the history lessons, you know, we're done with the history lessons. We already know those stories. How many times are we going to rehash them? How many times are we going to talk about the greatness of Africa and the people that we came from and all that? Well, where in the greatness of our African ancestors, they lived out in real time. Their greatness was not simply memorizing the exploits of those that came before them. Their greatness was in what they were creating, what they were building, whether it's the pyramids, whether it's mathematics, whether it's medical, whatever it is they were creating in real time, okay? So our real time is spent simply rehashing what they did thousands of years ago. We need to begin in real time creating our own greatness. And our own greatness is within our hands. It's not in anyone else's. So that's where we were. We were great. And even the slaves that were brought here to America and the sacrifices they made for their children, you know, sacrificing their lives in order to make sure these kids knew how to read, trying to escape, trying to impart into their young people, even in the midst of tyranny, treachery, and the most heinous living conditions, that many of them, they were just born and died never having experienced the promise, right? Their sacrifice, the baton they were carried through emancipation and then through Jim Crow, you know, and then through struggling for civil rights, you know, we know the history, but where is that baton now? Laying on the ground while we're looking back. I think there was like a scriptural reference to these folks who were, oh, men of Israel, why do you stand here gazing? They were looking up, remembering back on what it was instead of what's before them now, what you need to be doing. So, you know, I have sort of like a 5-point thing that we need to do. You know, we do need to get educated, because that increases your worldview. And as you begin to be more educated and recognizing what's been going on in the world and what is going on in the world, you are less satisfied with your lot in life, and you are motivated to move. Education, you know, health. We need to get better health. Start eating right. You know, start exercising, man. You can't you can't be a 1-foot warrior and be effective. So get educated, get healthy, right? And quit doing drugs, quit doing alcohol, quit that buzz. Come on now, we're still at war. You know, I mean, the buzz feels good. I understand that, but we're at war. We can't be in a foxhole fighting an enemy and then I look over at you, your gun's laying there, you're off because it's Friday night. No, until this war is over, we need to be sober, we need to be vigilant, we need to be diligent. As well, we need to quit breaking any kind of laws. Because again, as we talked about the Panthers, the way they embraced those law books, they realized the power they had in that law if you utilize the law, but it's just that pendulum will swing backwards and kill you if you're on the opposite side of the law. They will use that law to incarcerate you. You know, we talk about the new Jim Crow and the unfair justice system, and the unfair legal system and all that. Well, it's true. So take your behind out of it. Don't break any laws. For real. And get armed. Arm yourself. I'm telling you, if you do these things, if you begin to get educated, and first of all these things are examples to the young people looking at you, get educated. Get healthy. Stop doing drugs and alcohol. Don't break any kind of law. And get armed. You'll take yourself right out of the oppressive hand of the man. Shoot, man, they run my driver's license plate. It's boring. There's nothing on there. And if there's nothing on there, don't give them the opportunity to oppress you. Don't give them the excuse. Don't let them run your tags and find that you got a whole list of issues. Even if you don't even have a warrant, they're going to be so triggered against you, they might very well abuse you. Take that power out of their hands by taking yourself off their radar. And before you've known it, before they know it, before anyone knows it, you've de-oppressed yourself into a place of superiority over them. I was talking to some people recently, some pretty good white people. And I was expressing to them, you know, what I have done is, of all the people that would detract from me, well, yeah, I'm better than you, you know, all this stuff, man. Well, I've gotten to myself to a place of education greater than these people who thought they were better than me. I live in a better neighborhood than these people who thought they were better than me. I make more money than the people who thought they were better than me. My daughter goes to better schools than these people who think that they're not better than me. I made myself better than them. And this white lady, real good white lady, why do you think you have to be better than them? It is for my benefit, but it is for their benefit. This takes the fuel out of them. That's what Obama was about. All this mess we see even in our politics today, all this craziness we see in Washington, D.C., all these nuts out there, you know, charging the White House, it's all Obama. Because when Obama became president, he took the seat of the last vestige of imagined superiority that white folks had against black people. Black folks had already surpassed them in everything. That's why there was the burning of Oklahoma City. That's why they killed so many successful black people, destroyed their businesses, took their land and property, because they didn't want to face the fact that these people were superior to them. So they've seen it from the music. They've seen it in the sports. They've seen it in business. They've seen it in the military. Benjamin Davis, Chappie James, all these brothers out there, the generals, and mayors and governors and secretaries of state and all this. But then we finally, but that last vestige of an daunted supremacy that they were able to embrace was that no black man had ever been president of the United States officially. So President Obama, everyone he debated with, I don't care whether they were Republicans or Democrats, he dwarfed them intellectually. And when he became president, man, it was not only an emotional trauma for black people that we can't even believe this happened. It was an emotional trauma for white people even more. That for the first time in their lives, they had to face the fact that they were superior to no one. That's why when Trump was even running against Hillary, after Obama had won both terms, when he was running, he was saying, we don't want a third term of Obama, because he knew the trigger, that emotional trigger that affected white people so much. And so that's when the Tea Party was formed. Remember when Obama became president? That's when all this MAGA stuff came about, Make America Great Again, right? Pre-Obama, right? So all this, we recognize that. But it can never be pre-Obama. But what are we doing with that? Obama was the momentum. For me, particularly as an example, man, inspired me. Now I have an MBA. I had a high school diploma when he was elected. 3 months after he left office, I had an MBA. We need to get inspiration. We need to do better. We need to stop sabotaging our own success. We need to recognize that it's our job, our opportunity to pick up that baton that's been laying there for the past 20 years and start running with it, so we can position ourselves in a place where we can pass that baton to that next generation. It's not too late. But it's going to take a sacrifice, a fun. It's going to take diligence. It's going to take discipline. But as black men, as we come together and begin to discuss these things, we can make this a reality. How's that? Well, anyway, I want to thank you once again for listening, and I want to invite you to listen again. You take care.